Hi everyone and welcome to this video. In today's video, we are going to cover the entire process when it comes to applying for the MBA programs at IITs. So there are 10 IITs that offer various programs that are MBA or MBA equivalent, and a lot of students have queries with respect to whether firstly, am I eligible or not for these programs as a non-engineer? Are there any exemptions or specific requirements that are applicable to apply for these particular programs? So we're going to cover all of this. It's going to be a fairly long video, but this is the one video that you will find very useful because it will help you to understand everything that is out there when it comes to applying to these programs. So let's get started. Now we're going to start with IIT Bombay. Now, with respect to IIT Bombay, the program that is offered by Shailesh J. Mehta School of Management, popularly known as SJM SOM. And this program has been available, or IIT has been offering this program since a very long time. IIT Bombay also is one of the most preferred IITs when it comes to MBA programs. So if you look at the IITs, typically the Bombay, Delhi, Kharagpur, these are the ones that are the most preferred options that are out there. Now with this program, there is, when it comes to the minimum eligibility for the graduation program, you need to have 60% for all the categories except SC, ST, PWD. So in rest of the video also, and for the rest of the programs, what I've done is I've written what is the minimum percentage score that you're going to need. If there is any specific requirement for the different categories that are out there, that has also been mentioned. So if you are somebody who belongs to SC, ST or PWD, you need minimum 55% in your graduation. So there is a 5% relaxation that is offered by pretty much all the IITs. So compared to the general minimum requirement, there will be 5% relaxation for the category students for SC, ST and PWD. The EWS and OBC or NC-OBC is considered as part of the 60%. Now, final year students can apply, and that is going to be a constant for all the programs that you will see in this video. If you're a final year student, you're eligible to apply to any of these programs. The graduation degree and duration, you can be any graduate, any 3 or 4 year graduation program if you have completed, or if you're in the final year at this point of time, you are eligible to apply. Can non-engineers apply to this program? Yes, you can apply. The sectional cutoff when it comes to CAT is there. So there is a sectional cutoff, but that particular thing is not disclosed. So if you go to the website also under the admission process, you will find that they have written that they apply some sort of sectional cutoffs, but that is something that is decided after they have all the applications. And this is undisclosed at this point of time. That is why we don't have exact information on what is the sectional cutoff that is applied. The application deadline is 31st Jan 26. So at the time of recording this video, this is about a month from now. The application fees is going to be 1600 for general, OBC and EWS, and for rest of the categories it is 800. This pattern you will see at most of the other programs as well, where the general, OBC, EWS fees that is there, half of that is typically the SC, ST, PWD fees. And are there any exemptions or specific conditions? None. Okay, so there is no specific condition that is required to apply to IIT Bombay. You can be any 3 or 4 year graduate and you are eligible to apply. Now let's look at the other data points, right? So if you look at the intake, in the last batch, there are 132 students, or rather the current batch that is out there, 24-26 batch, there are 132 students. So the intake should be somewhere around 140, etc., or maybe around 130. Shortlisting weightages, if you look at it, there is a very high weightage on the CAT score. So 75% weightage is given to CAT score at the shortlisting stage. 10th doesn't matter. 12th score is 5%, graduation is 10%. Post-graduation is also important. So if you are a postgraduate, you're going to get additional points for that, which is 5%. And you have WorkX weightage, which is 5% as well. So if you're somebody who comes in with post-graduation or with work experience or a combination of these two, you would have a higher chance of getting shortlisted by IIT Bombay because of that 10% weightage. Now, one thing they have given is that there are no specific gender diversity points. However, it is clearly mentioned on the website that women applicants may be shortlisted to improve gender diversity without giving any additional weightage. Okay, so it is in their hand as to how they want to control that. Now, if you look at the shortlisting cutoffs of the last couple of years, so throughout the video, wherever possible, we have given the cutoffs that are available as per the RTI data that exists. So if you look at the last 4 years for IIT Bombay, typically you will see the general cutoff is around 90 percentile when it comes to shortlisting. So if you're somebody who is, let's say, a female candidate with work experience, that sort of a combination will help you even if you are at a lower percentile bracket. EWS typically ranges from anywhere between 90-93 in the past, but last year it was around 97 percentile. A lot of students have this thing as to how can EWS cutoff be higher than general cutoff. That does happen multiple times. NC-OBC cutoff typically is around 80 something, but last year was around 90. So even this year you could expect it to be closer to that number. SC cutoff is between 63 to 67. I would say if you're somewhere around 67, it's a very good position to be in. You should definitely consider applying to IIT Bombay. ST cutoffs have ranged from 60 to 78 in the past, but very close to 80, right? So what you should do is if you're somewhere in the 75 plus range, you should definitely apply. Between 70 to 75, it could be a bit of a gamble where you may or may not get a call. And for PWD students, again, predicting cutoffs is a little bit difficult because again, even for other categories also it is difficult because you don't know exactly how many people have appeared, right? Or how many people would be applying to that particular IIT in any of the years. And that is why you see a wide range, right? You see going as low as 64 percentile, but going to high as 90 percentile as well, right? So if you belong to PWD category, you should definitely apply because you don't know again how many people from PWD would be applying. It is better to take a shot at it. But again, if you're falling below 64, right, it generally will not make sense because you would always have people above you who would be getting a short list from IIT Bombay. So I would say this is the cutoff, but again, you have to decide whether you want to apply or not because past data tells you a story, right? So imagine somebody looking at 24, 26 cutoffs and then applying, right? Maybe let's say at 80 percentile for NCOBC. Now that person would have been disappointed in the year 25-27, correct? So you never know what is going to happen, and that is why you always go with the data, but also take your own decision whether you want to apply or not, okay? Alright, so that closes IIT Bombay. We'll move to the next IIT, which is IIT Delhi. Again, IIT Delhi has two programs. They have an MBA program and there is an MBA Telecom program. So this is offered by the Department of Management Studies at IIT Delhi. And again, program has been offered for a very long time. Similar to what we had for Bombay, 60% for others, 55% for SC, ST, PWD. That's the minimum graduation score requirement. Anybody can apply, whether you're a 3-year, 4-year graduation program, final year student, you can definitely apply. Non-engineers can also apply, and there's no sectional cutoff when it comes to CAT. The application deadline is going to be 26 Jan and 1600 and 800. Now here, per program, this is what the fees is. So if you're applying for both the MBA and the MBA Telecom program, you'll have to pay basically double the amount. And are there any exemptions or specific conditions? Not really, but when it comes to MBA Telecom program, they have given a list of graduation degrees that they will be accepting. For example, here now the problem is, if you go to the website and check it out, firstly there is a pretty long list and that is why I thought I'll not put it out here. You will see something like they have written that, okay, you need to have say engineering or any technology degree and so on. Or you can have a degree in science as well. For example, it could be chemistry, physics, mathematics, statistics, and so on. And they have written commerce and economics, right? Now, when they say economics, some people may have, for example, a BA economics degree, and mostly they will get accepted. But if you have, let's say, a BA English literature, then what will happen? That is something that is not given on the website. So if you have a degree which is not covered under that, it is better that you reach out to IIT Delhi directly and you can just check it out with them whether you will be eligible or not. But otherwise, they have, that is why I've written graduation stream for the MBA Telecom is the only conditional thing that is available. So you can check it out, just see if you're engineer or a science graduate, absolutely no problem because they have given all of that there. But if you're somebody who has done, let's say, a BA in, say, history or English and so on, it could be a problematic for you to apply for the MBA Telecom program. The MBA program, there is absolutely no constraint, so anybody can apply there. Okay, now let's look at the intake. So for the MBA program, it's around 115, that's the current strength that they have, and around 30 students for the MBA Telecom program. Now, what are the shortlisting weightages? If you look at it, again, very high weightage when it comes to CAT score, which is 65%. Now here, 10, 12 grad, everything matters. So 6%, 5% and 5% respectively. Gender diversity also matters, and that is why if you're a female candidate, you should definitely consider applying. 6% is the weightage there. 7% for WorkX, and Graduation Institute has a 6% weight. Now, what is this Graduation Institute? If you're a graduate from MOE funded technical institution or institute of eminence or institute of national importance. So that list is also available easily. You should check out if you belong to any of these institutions. If yes, then you're going to get these points. In the final selection, the weightage of CAT drops to 40%. 10-12 graduation will still continue to matter. Of course, the weightage goes down slightly. Interview becomes like the dominant parameter, 40% weight. WorkX and Grad Institute still have 6% and 3%. Okay, so if you're coming from a pedigree sort of a thing, that 6% will definitely help you to get a shortlist. The gender diversity will also help if you're a non-male candidate. Okay, so that's it for IIT Delhi. Now let's talk about the shortlisting and convert percentile, okay, from the last couple of years. So all of this data will be available on the B School Zone, because some of you may find it a bit difficult to sort of take a screenshot of this and go through it. What I would suggest is we'll give you a link in the description from where you can check it out. So all of the data will be available. The link is for the B School Zone. It's a tool that we have been running for the last 2 years, and it is for all the students. It's completely free, so you can use it and benefit. When it comes to applying and keeping track of the application deadlines, it is very useful. But of course, the utility goes beyond that. You have a lot of cutoff data and score versus percentile data, etc. that is available. So check it out. But what you see here is basically for MBA and MBA telecom programs, the cutoffs are not very different. Okay, so it's not that MBA telecom cutoffs are very low compared to the MBA cutoffs that are out there. In some years, you have seen variation, and as I mentioned earlier as well, the variation will happen because you don't know exact composition of the pool, plus you don't know who is applying, and that is why the variations will be there. But what you see is, okay, roundabout, if I'm there in that ballpark, I will apply. For example, if I see for the MBA, the first 4, I will not, of course, take you through all of this, but the table here is shortlisting percentile. These are convert percentile. Okay, so this is basically the minimum percentile of somebody who converted in that particular year. So in 23-25, for example, somebody with a 90 percentile was able to convert the MBA program. So if I see here around 90 percentile, that's what it is telling me. So if I'm a general candidate and I have a 90 plus, then I should apply. If I'm less than that, it is better that you don't apply to IIT Delhi in that particular case. So have a look at these numbers, take the minimum of that, and if you're above it, then you should apply. Otherwise, it's better to not spend your money unnecessarily, because there are other options also that are available. Okay, so have a look at all of this. As I said, a link will be given in the description. Okay, so let's move to the next IIT, the third IIT, which is IIT Kharagpur. Now, IIT Kharagpur has the first program that they offer, which is the MBA program, and this is offered under VG SOM, Vinod Gupta School of Management. Minimum grad eligibility is exactly the same that we saw for Delhi and Bombay. Final year students can also apply, but here there is a condition when it comes to the graduation degree and duration. So it says bachelor's of minimum 4 years in engineering technology on pharmacy. So if you come from any of the engineering technology pharmacy domain, you have a 4-year graduation program, you will be accepted. Or a master's degree in science, economics and commerce with maths and stats at bachelor's level. So this is a mandatory condition that you need to have. If this is something that is not applicable to you, you will not be eligible for the MBA program at VGSOM. Non-engineers, can they apply? Yes, but it is conditional because it says masters, right? So if I have, let's say I've done MCom, can I apply? Yes. But if I've done only BCom, can I apply? The answer is no. Okay, so that is why I've said conditional, non-engineers can apply. Is there a sectional cutoff for CAT? No. But there is a minimum eligibility when it comes to the CAT percentile, the overall percentile, that is. If you're a general or EWS, you need to have minimum 90 percentile. If you're OBC, you need to have 81 percentile. That includes both the creamy layer and the non-creamy layer. If you're SC, ST, PWD, then you need minimum 60 percentile. Okay, so anybody who is less than these figures is not eligible for the program. The application deadline is to be something to be announced, but looking at the last year, it should be around 5th Feb, because last year it was around 5th Feb, and application fees is going to be 1600 and 800. Okay. Now moving on to the intake for this program is 200. I think it's one of the largest when it comes to the intake. Shortlisting is going to be a composite score basis CAT, 10, 12, graduation, if you have any post-graduation or professional qualification and all of that, and your work experience. The final selection weightage is 20% on the application rating. CAT is pretty dominant here, so you are going to have 40% there, with split as 20% on VRC. So if you have a higher VRC score, makes sense to apply to IIT Kharagpur. 10% each for DLR and QA, and then PI becomes 40%. The shortlisting cutoffs of the last 4 years again are given, and we'll give you a link in the description. So 90 percentile for general, EWS also around 90 as you saw in the previous one, because that becomes the eligibility, right? So anybody above that is eligible. So you're going to have a lot of people who get shortlisted who have figures that are very close to those minimum eligibility figures that are there. SC, ST, PWD. So in the last couple of years, you will see 60, 60, etc. For NCOBC, 81 is the eligibility. So that is where you will find people getting shortlisted. That brings us to the second program at IIT Kharagpur. Now, this program is not for everybody. So this program is for students who are interested in the human resource management, right? So this is an MHRM program. This is not offered by VGSOM. This is offered by a different department in IIT Kharagpur, which is Department of Humanities and Social Sciences. Now for this program, again, the minimum grad eligibility is exactly the same, but final year students can apply, and graduation degree duration condition is similar. So what you saw the previous one, the bachelor's degree of minimum 4 years in engineering, technology, pharmacy, they have added a few things here, medicine or similar disciplines, or a master's degree in any subject. So again, if you're done MA, you're done MCom, you're done whatever else masters, you are eligible for this. So again, conditionally, non-engineers can apply to this particular program. So if you're done BCom, eligible? No, right? A BA eligible? No. But an MCom or an MA will be eligible. Now, what's the minimum eligibility for CAT? General EWS 80, NCOBC 72, SC, ST, PWD is 53.33. So if you're above these numbers, you are eligible for the program. Otherwise, you are not. Sectional cutoffs, not applicable. The deadline yet to be announced, but last year it was around 15 Feb. So mostly tentatively that could be the deadline. Application fee is very similar to the program under VGSOM, 1600 and 800. Intake for this program is 60. But the interesting thing is they are not able to fill all the 60 seats. So though on the website it is mentioned that there are 60 students, that is the sanctioned intake. The last couple of batches, they have not been able to fill all the seats. So generally all the few seats will obviously go vacant. And that is why this is again a very good opportunity, because if you see in some of the institutes, if the seats are going vacant, basically there are a lot of students who are not applying, who ideally should have applied and should have gotten, but they are not doing that. Okay, and of course a lot of people who are converting are not joining because they're getting some other opportunities. So I would suggest that you have a look at this as a program if you're especially interested in the human resources. Shortlisting is dependent on CAT score and academic profile. They have not given exact weightages. Doesn't matter too much whether you know the weightages or not, because CAT score is going to be the dominant part of it. Okay. All right. So done with 3 IITs. We are going to move to the 4th IIT, which is IIT Madras. Now, again, IIT Madras has been offering the program for a very long time. It's a very good program, and their admission process is also something which is very simple, and they also have some unique features which I'll talk about as we progress. Now, this particular program is offered by Department of Management Studies at IIT Madras. The minimum grad eligibility is exactly the same as the previous ones, 60 and 55. Final year students can apply no matter what graduation you have done, 3-year, 4-year, doesn't matter what degree you have. Non-engineers can apply, there's no sectional cutoff. The deadline is going to be 31st Jan, again 1600, 800 as the application fees. And any specific exemptions? Yes. So if you're an IIT graduate, so IIT graduates who have obtained a CGPA of 8 and above on 10 are exempted from CAT score. So if you're an IITian and you have scored more than 8 GPA out of 10, then you don't need to have CAT score, which basically means that even if you have not taken the CAT, that's completely okay. If you have taken CAT, that's fine, but if you have not taken it, that's okay. You can apply to IIT Madras even without having a CAT score if you are an IITian with 8 plus CGPA. Okay, so that's an interesting thing. Second interesting thing which I'll talk about as we move ahead, but here the intake is 93. Okay, so this is for the batch of 23-25, meaning sanction intake could be slightly higher than that. Shortlisting weight, 75% on the CAT score. So that's a huge component. If you have a higher CAT score, obviously higher chance of getting shortlisted. 10-12 grad also matters, 2-3-5% respectively. 10% for WorkX, 3% for gender diversity, right? So if you're a female candidate coming from, say, a non-engineering background, definitely you should consider applying. Academic diversity has 2% weight. The selection is basis the reflective writing plus PI plus composite score plus other achievements that you have. Okay, now let's talk about the minimum percentile. But here we have the minimum percentile data for the offered candidates. We don't have it for the shortlisted candidates. So how do you interpret that, or how do you use that to decide whether I should apply or not? See, if somebody was offered, say in the year 24-26 at 85 percentile, meaning the people who were shortlisted would have typically score which is either equal to this or slightly less than this, right? So if you're in this range, maybe you're somewhere around say 83, 84, 85, you have a short, obviously, correct? So similarly for others, you can see NCOBC, for example, is around 70. So if you're a 70 plus percentiler from NCOBC, you should consider applying, because last 3 years data is pointing towards that. But say something like an SC/ST, the figures have varied a lot. You should look at the figures here and say, okay, 46, the chances become very, very low. But at 54 plus, there are reasonably decent chances. But from a shortlisting perspective, people with scores less than this would have also been shortlisted, because these are convert cutoffs that we have. Okay. Now moving on to IIT Kanpur. Okay, so Madras is like pretty simple in that sense, because they don't have any sort of conditions, anything. Anybody can apply, 3-year, 4-year graduation, doesn't really matter. Moving on to the next one, which is IIT Kanpur. Now at IIT Kanpur, you have the MBA program, which is offered by DOMS again. The minimum grad eligibility here is again similar, 60 and 50 this time. So compared to the other IITs where you saw 5% relaxation, here you have 10% relaxation. So if you are SC/ST PWD at 50% in graduation, that becomes the minimum eligibility. Final year students can apply. You could be any graduate, 3-year, 4-year, doesn't matter. Non-engineers can apply. Are there any sectional cutoffs? No. Okay. Now the application deadline, similar to some of the other IITs, would be around 31st Jan. Application fees 2,000, slightly more expensive than the others. For general, OBC and EWS, 1,000 for SC/ST PWD. Now there are specific conditions here, but now the first condition is that you need to have mathematics at +2 level. And this is a mandatory requirement, by the way. So you need to have maths at the 10+2, as in the +2 level, which is in your 12th standard basically, so that you become eligible for this program. If you don't have it, you're not eligible. Specific condition 2 is CAT overall minimum is 80 percentile for general, EWS and OBC. So if you're less than 80 percentile, general, EWS, OBC, you're not eligible. 55 percentile for SC/ST and PWD. So though there is no sectional cutoff, minimum there is an overall requirement that is there. Okay, so 55 percentile for SC/ST PWD. Now intake, the batch of 25-27 has 53 students, so sanction intake would be more than that slightly. Shortlisting is completely dependent on your CAT percentile. The selection weightages are 20% for CAT. 10 score does not matter. 12th grad combined have 20% weightage. WorkX GDPI 10%, 20%, 30%. So your GDPI is 50% in the final thing, right? So getting a shortlist, if you've got a shortlist, 50% is going to be dependent on how you do, how well you do on the GD and PI that is going to happen. Now, if you look at the shortlisting cutoffs from the last couple of years, you will see around 91 plus for general. Last year, EWS was close to 90, but in the previous years, it has been around 85 as well. NCOBC again last year was 90, SC/ST PWD is 70. Okay, so if you look at this, the minimum requirement anyway for general, EWS, OBC is 80 percentile. So if you are less than that, you are anyway not eligible. So if you are more than this, obviously look at these data points and see if you want to apply to this program. That brings us to the next IIT, which is IIT Roorkee. Now, IIT Roorkee also has a program that has been offered for a very long time. Department of Management Studies offers it. Graduation requirement is similar, 60 and 55. Final year students can apply. You can be any graduate, does not matter whether it is a 3 or a 4-year program. Non-engineers can also apply. No sectional cutoff. The application deadline is not out yet at the time of recording this video, but going by the last year trend, it should be around 31st Jan. 1600, 800, again very similar, but here there is an exemption that is available. Okay, so if you are somebody who is JE or JE advanced qualified IIT graduate with CGPA of 7, so the way you had for one of the IITs that we saw, right, where it was 8 plus, which was I think IIT Madras, if that is the exemption there, here it is 7. So if you are above 7 or 70% when it comes to the CGPA conversion that is there, if you are an IITian with 7 plus, then you don't have to have your CAT score, you will directly be called. Okay, so there is an exemption that is available. Now, what else is there? So here you have some additional seats that are there for female candidates under this Golden Girl scheme. Now, what is this Golden Girl scheme? So they have mentioned that if you're a first rank holder or a gold medalist, female candidate in qualifying examination, which is your graduation basically, from an IIT or institute or university within top 50 ranks overall category in the NRF in the most recent year. So from the latest NRF ranking, if you are in the top 50 institutes or universities and you are a female gold medalist or first ranker in your college or university, then you will be exempted from CAT requirement. Okay, you will be directly called for the interview. The intake is total 95. This is the split that is there for general, EWS, NCOBC and so on. The shortlisting cutoffs, if you see, for general it is around 90, for EWS around 81, 83. NCOBC is again similar. SC, ST, PWD is in the range of 60, 61. So because the data is like fairly consistent for the 2 years, you can go with this. If you are say 90 plus general candidate, you will definitely get a shortlist. Okay. So moving on to the next one. Now we have covered most of the IITs which were offering programs from a very long time. But now we'll talk about some of the IITs which first of all they are not the first generation of IITs. So they started also late. So the way you have for IIMs, the first, second, third generation, even there are a lot of IITs that either started a bit late or started offering the management programs much later from their existence. So we'll start with the first one, which is IIT Jodhpur. Now at IIT Jodhpur, firstly, there are two programs that they offer. There is an MBA and MBA technology program. These are offered by the School of Management and Entrepreneurship. Now, minimum grad eligibility and a lot of these data points are very similar to what we saw earlier. You can apply either as a final year student, any graduation is okay. No, there is a sectional cutoff and non-engineers can apply. Sectional cutoff, we'll talk about it on the next slide. The application deadline not announced yet, but tentatively 31st Jan. 1200 and 600, so slightly less expensive compared to other applications. The exemptions or specific conditions, there aren't any. Okay. Now intake is 80. Okay, so total intake is 80, and the shortlisting is basis your CAT score, your work ex, and gender diversity. So gender diversity matters here. Selection is basis composite score and the personal interview that will happen. Now there are two important points here. Okay, so for this particular program, which is the MBA and MBA technology programs, the admission process is common. So you're not going to have two different processes for these programs. The first year is exactly the same. There is a pathway that is offered, the track that is offered in the second year, which either leads to an MBA program or an MBA technology program. So depending on what you want to do, you will have that option in the second year. The other thing is there's an optional opportunity that is presented. This opportunity is to pursue second year at one of the partner B schools in the US. So I think they've given 4 universities in the US where you can go and complete your second year, resulting in the international dual degree. Okay, so this is an optional thing. If you want, you can do both years at IIT Jodhpur. If you want, you can do your second year in the US. Okay. Now, what are the shortlisting cutoffs at the, if you look at the requirement that is there, overall and sectional. So again, I've given for the last 2 years, just for you to get a sense of what it was. 25-27 will work with this rather than the 24-26 numbers. Okay. So general minimum requirement is 85, sectional requirement is 60. So here this is one of the places where we saw the sectional being required, right? At most of the places we saw there was no sectional cutoff, but here you have the sectional requirement. So 60 if you are general EWS is 54, NCOBC 54, for SC, ST, PWD it is constant 39.6 in each of the sections. Again, this was last year. For 26-28, what it will be is something they have not announced at this point of time. So that is why we'll work with these numbers. But once they update data for 26-28, we'll also update it on the B School Zone page where we have that data, so that all of you can take an informed decision. Okay. Now, IIT Jodhpur also has another program which is not very popularly known because firstly, this program they started very recently, and for this program, it's called MBA in FinTech and Cybersecurity. So because it's a niche in which it is operating, a lot of people again might not be interested in that. But as you see, the batch size is also very small. So in the last batch of 24-26, on the website it is given there are only 7 students who have opted for this particular program. But yes, I'm guessing with the passage of time, more and more people will get interested in this. Now here what happens? So firstly, mode 1 is basically student completes 2 semesters at IIT Jodhpur, which is basically your first year. And then you join the university in the US, right, from the third semester. So they have tie-up with Sunny Albany from the third semester. Now following this pathway, the student will acquire 2 degrees. You will have an MBA in FinTech and Cybersecurity from IIT Jodhpur and MS in Cybersecurity and Digital Forensics from Sunny Albany. Okay. The second mode is that if you don't want to do this, you can complete all 4 semesters at IIT Jodhpur, which is basically the entire program, and the student will acquire only an MBA in FinTech and Cybersecurity from IIT Jodhpur. So this is a mode that is available. If you want to go for this mode, you can go for it. Otherwise, you just do the entire thing at IIT Jodhpur. Okay. All right. So let's move on to the next IIT, which is IIT Guwahati. Now at IIT Guwahati, again, you have the MBA program offered by School of Business. No conditions whatsoever. Anybody can apply. 60-55 for the graduation course. You can be a final year student, non-engineer, doesn't matter. You can apply. No sectional cutoff. Application deadline, not announced yet, but going by the last year trend, around 8 Feb 26. 1600 and 800 as the application fees. Absolutely no constraints otherwise whatsoever. Okay. Now, what's the intake? So total intake, it's a small batch size. There are only 30 students that they have as the sanctioned intake. 12 general, 3 WS, 8 NCOBC, 5 each in SC and ST, and PWD is spread out. Shortlisting weightage, 70% on CAT score. So pretty dominant there. 12th and grad, 5% each. Post-graduation, you have 3%. So if you're a post-grad student, obviously slightly more advantage there. WorkX 7% and diversity 10%, which is huge. So if you are again, you have diversity, 10% is what you can use. Selection, final weightages, CAT 40%, graduation 10%, WorkX 10% and PI 5%. Okay. I think there is some mistake that has happened here. We will rectify this, but because the weightages are not adding up, we'll fix this particular mistake. I didn't realize it at the time of making the presentation, but we'll fix this up. Okay, so don't worry about that. We'll make a rectification here and put the data, exact data, in the description of the video. Okay. All right. So moving on to the IIT ISM Dhanbad. Okay, which is the next IIT that we're going to talk about. So here there are 2 programs again. There is MBA and MBA Business Analytics that is offered. This is under Department of Management Studies and Industrial Engineering. Minimum grad eligibility 60-55, very similar to what we saw. Final year students can apply, but when it comes to the requirement for graduation degree, there is a condition. So the graduation degree and duration, if you're applying for MBA, anybody can apply. Any 3 or 4 year graduation program is okay. For the MBA BA program, however, you need to have a BE or a BTech. So for MBA, non-engineers can apply, but when it comes to MBA Business Analytics, non-engineers cannot apply. The CAT sectional cutoff is not applicable. Application deadline 31st Jan, 1600, 800 as the application fees. No exemptions, no specific conditions otherwise. If you look at the intake, 90 for the MBA program and 30 for the MBA BA program, and this is the split across categories that is available. Shortlisting is purely dependent on the CAT percentile, but in the final selection, there are of course different things, CAT being 35%. So the weightage of CAT is not that high in the final selection. 10% on ACATS, 10% WorkX, 5% diversity, and 40% is the interview. So that becomes like the dominant part of it. So here again, 2 programs as I mentioned. You decide if you are an engineer, you can basically apply to both. If you're a non-engineer, then you can apply only for the MBA program and not for the MBA Business Analytics program. That brings us to the next one, which is IIT Mandi. Okay, now for IIT Mandi, there are the program that is offered, right? It's a specific program. Not everybody will be interested in this, which is Data Science and Artificial Intelligence. So MBA in DS and AI. This is offered by the School of Management. 60-55, very similar to others. Anybody can apply. Any 3 or 4 year graduation, non-engineering is also okay. No sectional cutoffs when it comes to CAT. The deadline is 27 Jan 2026. Slightly expensive, 2400 for general OBC EWS, 1200 for others, including female candidates. Now, there is a specific condition here, which is mathematics at the +2 level. So similar to one of the IITs that we saw, mathematics at +2 level will be required if you are going to apply for this program. Because see what happens with DS and AI programs, you need to have some understanding of mathematics to be able to grasp what is going to happen. and that is why they put that as the mandatory requirement. Now let's talk about the CAT exempted applicants. So here at IIT Mandi, they have given this, that if you are graduate from any of the centrally funded technical institutions, any of the top 100 institute according to NRF ranking, overall or engineering category, with 65% marks in graduation, if you are a general OBC EWS, or 60% in graduation for SC, ST, NCOBC and PWD, then you don't need to have CAT score. Okay, so these are CAT exempted applicants. They eventually merge, right? So depending on whether you are submitting CAT score, you're not submitting CAT score, ultimately they'll put you in the same pool and you will have the rest of the process. But if you're somebody who belongs to these institutions, the list is given, you can check it out, and you have these percentages in the graduation, 65 or 60, whatever, depending on which category you're from, then you are exempted from the CAT requirement. The intake is 46 students for the batch of 24-26. Sanction intake could be around 50 or 60. That is not given on the website. At least I could not find it. But last batch has 46 students. So if you add up all of this, right, you're totally looking at more than 1,000 seats, right? So there are 10 IITs, 15 programs, 1,000 plus seats, 1,050 plus to be specific. So make sure that you go through the entire requirement, figure out if that is something that you aspire to get into. The placement information anyway is available on the individual websites, but yes, you can also check it out on the B School Zone. For some of these programs which are relatively new, exact placement data is not available. You might have to work with the summer placement data or some information which is available on, let's say, LinkedIn, etc. But otherwise you may not have exact information on the placement statistics. But for majority of the programs it is available, and you can definitely check out that information on the B School Zone. So with this, we have covered everything that is out there when it comes to IITs. As I mentioned, 10 IITs, 15 programs, 1,050 plus seats. So make sure that you consider IITs first of all. It's not that IITs are only known for technical or technological excellence. They are also very good when it comes to offering management education. So give them a consideration. Have a look at the past data, the cutoffs and all of that. Look at the placement statistics, look at your own aspiration, and then decide whether you want to apply or not. Of course, factor in all these conditions and exemptions that we spoke about, because if you're not eligible for certain program, obviously you will not be able to consider, right? So that is why go and do all the research. This was an attempt to cover everything, but if you have any further questions, please let me know via the comment section. You can ask a question. I'll try and get back as soon as I can. So thank you so much for watching. Wish all of you all the best. Happy New Year to all of you. And I'll hopefully see you soon in some or the other video. Bye. Take care.